Hello and welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial I want to show you how you can use a spline component to draw this AI road here. So when you pull the actor out, you can just pull it and draw this AI road here. So when you put a car on it, it will automatically follow the road. This is in addition of the calculate path tutorial, so be sure that you watch this first. So first of all, I will show you the car that we're using. So we have this Firebird from the last tutorials, and it's pretty simple. We have an event begin play where we just call the driving function, and the driving function is just set the handbrake to false and add the throttle input. So and then we have the event tick event where we just call our get path function that we all know. If not, put a link in the description. And then we just call the set steering input with the vehicle movement. Great. So, as you remember, we have the active path variable that we're using later. So first of all, let's go here in an empty folder and we create a new blueprint class actor. Let's call this generator, just for example. And the generator gets a spline component. And now we need some variables. So let's add one. So this one will be the mesh itself. And this will be just a static mesh object reference. Compile and save this. And in my case, I will reset this with this street here. So let's put it right here as a default value. The next variable is the mesh length. The mesh length is a float value. And that's pretty it. Let's put the default value in my case to 800. You can play around with the value. I will show you later what it stands for. And we make both of these variables public, like that. So let's go to the event graph. We can delete this here. And now we need a new function. The function is called getSpline properties at index. So this function gets one input. This will be the index as an integer, like that. So we take out the mesh length, get it, as well as the spline itself, get it. Great. So now we will go from the index and say integer multiplied by a float. And we add the mesh length as a multiplied, like that. Then what we need as well, we need some outputs. So this one will be the start position as a vector. The next one will be the start tangent as well as a vector. Third one will be the end position. Fourth one will be the end tangent. And the last one will be the transform. Like that. And this will be a transform, of course. Great. So let's pull this out here. And now we need to set it, of course. So we go from the spline component first and say get location at distance along spline. Like this, and we just connect it here. Great. So the next one is we go from the spline and again and say get direction at distance along spline. And as well put this inside here. Now we just copy and paste this down here. And what we need now is we go from the mesh length and say float plus float. And the return value of this one is the plus value, like that. And this goes into the distance right down here. And this line, of course, it will still be target, like that. So, and the last part is we go from the index down here and say get transform at spline point. And just connect the spline point as a target and set it to world. And now we just connect the return values. So it's the start position, this will be the start tangent, the end position, the end tangent, and the transform. Great. So compile and save this. We need this function later. So let's go to the construction script. So inside the construction script, we start with the spline. And from the spline, we say get number of spline points. The return value is integer minus another integer. Put this to 2. And now we go from the construction script and say for loop. This one here. We leave the first index to 0 and the last index will be the return value, like that. From the loop body, we say add spline mesh component. From here, we go from the return value and say set static mesh. The mesh will, of course, the new mesh that we set. Then again, from the return value, we say set collision enable and put this to query only. And then we call our getSpline properties at index function like that. And the index of the for loop will be the index that we ask for. Great. So, and then we go from the return value again and say set start and end. And now we just connect the positions. So the start position, the start tangent, the end position and the end tangent, and leave it to update mesh. So now we are able to draw a road, but this road will not have any functionality, so that's bad. So what we need here is we need another blueprint actor. So let's go back to our folder here and say blueprint class actor, and this will be our path. In this, we just need the spline component. As always, we go to our event graph, can delete everything. What we else need here is we need an box collision. Put this a little bit beside here, like that. Make it a little bit bigger. We have to play around with this later. And we go back to the event graph and we say under details on component begin overlap. Then from other actor we cast to, in my case, it is my AI Firebird. Whatever cars your name, then you cast to this one. And then we just want to set the active path. And connect the spline to the active path. That's it. So we need this path blueprint actor inside our road that we're drawing. So to do that, we go from the set start and end and say add child actor component. The transform will be the relative transform like this one, and we set the manual attachment to true. And then we go from the return value and say set child actor class. And just put this to our path. Like this. Great. So we have this for loop that adds the mesh, in our case our road. activates the collision, of course, and then sets the properties, so the transform, and after this it adds up every time to the road part on child component. In our case it's the path. So let's go back to our path and just move this spline here a little bit more in the middle of the box collision, like this one, and we put the location of this selected point at 800 in our case. As I said, you have to play around with this value, so let's see if it works. So we take out our generator here. As you can see, it draws already the road. So if we take this spline component, you can see it will draw road part, and it will always draw our spline component with the collision box here. So, and if we hold the Alt key, we can multiply and draw the road here. Of course, we can move it as a curve if we want, like this one. And when we click on it, you can see it draws the path itself. You can make it a little bit more realistic here. So when you pull this, as you can see, that it will be triggered. Great, so let's see if it works. So let's take out our car here, put it right on the road, and hit play. So as you can see, the car is driving forward, and there comes the curve. He drives the curve and follow the street. Great. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you have any questions, please let me know, and yeah, goodbye.